Smiley face emoji.
They've shown all the cards. As I already kind of mentioned, if you listen to the intro, we're not talking about all the cards today, but we are going to talk about different themes that are very, very obvious when you look at all the cards together. And I wanted to start with hand beast buffing Hunter, because there's quite a few beast buffing cards that are buffing beasts in your hands that stand out to me. And we're going to try and keep this to be an open and flowing conversation. Audio listeners, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we read specific cards that we mention. We're not going in any particular order. We're going to try and keep this as organic as we can make it. So bear with us as we do that. But one of the first cards that made me think of this, we talked about last week, which was Scavenger's Ingenuity. That was the 2-mana draw beast, give it +3/+3 card that we talked about last week. But now we have seen so many more cards that are kind of in this vein of giving a beast that you haven't played yet a buff, including things like Hellbore, which is just a 1-mana 2/1. Don't worry, it doesn't have charged. I know it's like a cheap boar. Don't worry, but it does have a death rattle that reads: give a random beast in your hand +1/+1, and it's not alone. Jocelyn, you're the resident Hunter fanboy. Regis, I actually don't know where you stand on Hunter.
I play whatever. I don't care. I play a lot.
Everyone
so
equally.
Yeah, except for Priest, maybe.
Nice. Yeah. Me. Well, I used to really like Priest, and then they just kept buffing health and divine spiriting for years, and I kind of got bored.
It's okay. It's gone now.
Thank good. Well, I don't want to. That's flippant, and a lot of Priest players are very concerned, and I think their concerns are somewhat valid. So I don't want to be too flippant, but I think this looks cool for the hand buffing, especially with a tutor effect in Scavenger's Ingenuity. Like, you're gonna be able to find your beast through that draw effect, and it's gonna have a beefy buff on top of it. That alone made me interested. And then after seeing Hellbore, after seeing Augmented Porcupine, which is a 3-mana 2/4 with the death rattle that deals this minion's attack damage randomly split among all enemies, that's really cool. And then obviously the Prime card, which is a Zixor Apex Predator. It's a 3-mana 2/4 rush, death rattle, shuffle Zixor Prime into your deck. And Zixor Prime is an 8-mana 4/4 with rush, but the battle cry summons 3 copies of this minion, and it is a beast, so you could buff it up and get multiple copies of the buffed Zixor Prime.
Yeah,
4 7/7s instead of a 4-mana 7/7.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
but like, I mean, the last time that we really saw them go hard into hand buffing was back in like Mean Streets of Gadgetzan for Hunter, and I think this is just a better iteration of it. This seems to be, giving you a targeted draw, giving you a bigger buff than, you would normally get, or, you're very much like targeting removal while also making your stuff better. Like, this just seems a lot better, and Hunter has no shortage of really strong beasts. So it's like, you got good beast cards anyways, and now you've got some draw stuff, you've got some removal stuff, and those are just going to make your beast better. This looks like a really interesting archetype to me.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing that's changed since that era of hand buff as well is we have rush minions everywhere now, including very prominently in Hunter. Maybe not in the Outland set, but still a lot of rush stuff is lingering around. Zixor is one example of a nice rush minion there. So the hand buff stats actually go into action much faster. In the past, you'd hand buff something, you'd play it, it would sit there for a turn, then you'd finally get to interact with it. So it would take the hand buff turn, and then you'd play it. So you'd be kind of in like a 2 to 3 turn delay before your stats really did anything. And this basically is removing one of those turns of delay because you have rush minions now, and you can force the action, put the stats into place sooner. So I'm also hopeful that it actually gets there. I still have some concerns because these are single targeted hand buff cards as opposed to like full hand buff. So that can be advantageous because you can narrow it in on like a key target that you really care about, but it also limits the scope and scalability a little bit. So I hope it gets there, but
in before there's some sort of like charging boar deck that just holds the boar the whole game and just buffs the crap out of it and then does like 30 damage in one turn.
Well, it's true that you can use Scavenger's Ingenuity as a tutor effect to get the exact beast you want, like a Stone Tusk Boar or a King Crush or whatever, and then start stacking on that one beast. So in OTK possibilities there, I think more of a just kind of generalized mid-rangey tempo version is possible. We've got the Porcupine for Death Rattle synergies. So it could just be a complementary piece. It could also just squeeze into a Highlander deck too, where you just need more cards.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you, especially Scavenger's Ingenuity, where you're going to have beasts in your hunter deck anyways. Even some of like the dragon hunters and the like secret hunters, they've all got a beast or two. Like you can't really get away from beasts in hunter. So if you can just draw cards, which is something that hunter tends to be not that great at anyways, like you're going to thin your deck, and you're also, when you draw it, making it much more powerful than it was in the first place by like that +3/+3 is a really big buff. So I think that just all of this means it's going to find a spot in Hunter, Scavenger's Ingenuity at least. So you're going to see some buffing of beasts, even if you can't make a whole like hand buff thing happen. Maybe you can make a whole hand buff Hunter.
I think it's Hunter, man. They usually have like 7 solid archetypes to take on the ladder. I'm sure
true.
This will be one of them.
Yeah.
That's fair. I will say the one card I don't like in the hand buff package is Scrap Shot, 4-mana spell, deal 3 damage, give a random beast in your hand +3/+3. I don't think 3 damage is quite enough for 4 mana, even though it can go face, which is something Hunter likes. I'm worried that's giving up a tad too much tempo in the hand buff swing that happens, a turn or two later. May not be worth it. If that dealt 4 damage or cost 3 mana, I think that card would be like perfect for this. But as it stands, some of those numbers just don't quite get there for me. So that might be a weak spot of a full-in hand buff deck right now. But I'm going to keep an eye on it because it can go face. Face is good for Hunter.
Flanking Strike definitely is the one that came to mind when I saw Scrap Shot. I was like, it's kind of like similar, but different. And maybe you're right. Like, because you still have to, since the beast is in your hand, you still have to play it out, right? You still have to pay that mana cost. You still have to wait for the attack or whatever. And you're either waiting late game and trying to hit something of a lower mana cost to get it out the same turn, or you're again splitting it over a couple turns. So
that's a perfect
I can see what
example.
you're saying about that.
It's a low tempo flanking strike. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.